Good morning. Lamaya. Exams. The exam. Exams on the medical debate. And also, please inform to the others as well. We have to do the first assignment. That is online quiz. Online quiz මම කලින් plan කරන් හිටියේ basically ගෙන්නලා කරන් හැබැයි සමහර කට්ටිය ඊට පස්සේ කතා කරලා කිව්වා මේ සමහර දවස්වල නිවාඩු ගන්න බෑ වැඩ weekends වල කියලා ඒ නිසා දෙක මම සාමාන්‍ය next week එකේ Sunday සාමාන්‍ය lecture එක යනවා එතකොට අවස දින පැය 9:00ට වගේ ඔන් කරොත් ඔයාලට ඒක ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැද්ද? يعني ඔයාලට ඔන්ලයින් විතර ඉඳන් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ප්‍රශ්න නැහැ හොඳයි දුන්නත් නේ. ඒකම දේ තමයි ඒකේ quiz එකේ instructions ටිකක් තියෙනවා මම ඒකේ LMS එකේ දානවා. එතකොට ඔයාලට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ප්‍රශ්න 20ක් ඒ ප්‍රශ්න 20ක් ඔයාලට පැය භාගයක් ඇතුළත MCQ ටයිප් තියෙන්නේ. ප්‍රශ්න 20ක්. ඔය 20ක් තියෙනවා 20 ඔයාලට භාගී විනාඩි 30කින් ලියන්න තියෙනවා. ලියන්න කියන්නේ MCQ තමයි තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ ප්‍රශ්න 20 වල කරගෙන යනකොට ඔයාලට අර එක ප්‍රශ්නයකට ආන්සර් කරලා ඊළඟ ප්‍රශ්නයට ගියොත් you can't come back. දැන් අපි කියන navigation press කරලා තියෙන්නේ. හරි. එතකොට කලින් ප්‍රශ්නෙට ආන්සර් එක දුන්නොත් ඔයා MCQ එකට ටික් එක දැම්මොත් සහ ඔයා ඊළඟ ප්‍රශ්නෙට ගියොත් ඔයාලා කලින් ප්‍රශ්නෙට එන්න බෑ. So that restriction is there. And also there is no any alternative attempt. You have failed to attempt for that time period. So there is no alternative attempt for the this quiz. Again, කාටද මේක කරගන්න බැරි නම් ඒ ටයිම් එකේ ඒ නිසා ඒකට alternative time එකක් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොනවා හරි technical issue එකක් වුණොත් ඒ ටයිම් එකේ මොකක්ද කරන්නේ attempt එකක් දෙන්නේ නැහැ. අරද ප්‍රශ්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා පැය භාගයක් තියෙන්නේ. Sunday 9 to 10 or 9:30 to 10:30 වගේ ඒක available ඒ ටයිම් එක ඇතුලේ ඔයාලා ඒක කරනවා. අනේ instruction ටික අද අවසර වගේ ලිමිට්ස් එක දාලා තියන්න. lectures සාමාන්‍ය දෙයට site table එක ඉවරයි ඒක හරි online එකේ තියෙන මොඩ් එකකට lecture එක තියෙනවා. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට විසිකලා තියෙනවා. Okay. That announcement. So we are moving to the next part of our lecture series. So that is the ethics. Okay. So we have completed up to I think 6 weeks. So up to 5 weeks. So we have discussed the corporate governance. Okay. So corporate governance. Because that we have discussed some type of conduct. Like the committees what we have and the membership board memberships. So likewise some concept we have discussed. Okay, and also your quiz. So we are testing for that part only. Okay, because corporate governance well අපි කතා කරපු එක තමයි මෙන්න test කරලා තියෙන quiz එක. Okay. So today we are starting the professional ethics and ethical issues. So this is the second part of our lecture. That means our course module. The ethics and ethical issues. Okay. So first part is corporate governance, and second part is ethics, and third part is what? Okay. So this part will be discussed by the Himalayas. Okay. The 2 weeks. So this ethics. So when it's come to the ethics, so as you understanding, so what we mean by this ethics? In a way, ethics beyond work. So as you understand, so you don't think about this professional ethics. So what do you mean? What do you feel about this ethics? අපි සිංහලෙන් කියනවා ආචාර ධර්ම නේද? ඒවනේ ethics කියලා කියන්නේ. As you understand what we mean by this ethics. Another ethics කියලා කියන්නේ. Okay, good behaviors. Okay. It's like other ethics කියලා කියනවා. ඔයාලා මම හිතන දෙයක් කියන්න ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මොකක්ද හිතන්නේ ethics කියලා? Rules and regulations. What are the rules and regulations? Rules and regulations. Okay. Ethics. Do you have ethics? Everyone? Ethics තියෙනවද? So it's the right thing. Okay. So here is your three answers. So right behavior, good behavior, rules and regulations, and also do you have pleasure? Doing the right thing. Okay. So when it comes to ethics, so yes, it is the doing the right thing. Okay. So one of the right things again. So that means you have the wrong thing. That means these things ought to be done. Okay. Ethics. Achara dharma. Okay. So if it is if this ethics is doing right things, so how do you identify what is the right thing? මොකක්ද හරි දේ කියලා කොහොමද ඔයාලා හිතන්නේ? අඳුරගන්න. How to identify this is ethics, this is not ethics, likewise. මේක ethics එකක්. මේක ethics එකක් නෙමෙයි. කොහොමද අඳුරගන්නේ? This is just a background. How to identify? මේක කරන්න හොඳ නැති දෙයක්. මේක කරන්න හොඳ දෙයක්. කොහොමද ඔයාලා අඳුරගන්නේ? Okay. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදියට ගත්තොත් දෙමෝපියන්ට සලකන. අපි ඔයාලා ළමයි කියලා ඔයාලා අම්මලාට අත්තලා සලකන. ඒක ඔයාලා කොහොමද අඳුරගන්නේ මේක ethic එකක්. මේක හොඳ දෙයක් කියලා කොහොමද අඳුරගන්නේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාලා පන්සලට එතකොට සල්ලියට යනකොට පාවහන් ගලවලා යනවා. තෙරෙප්පු ගලවලා යනවා. නැත්නම් කැපේ ගලවලා යනවා. බස් එකේ නගිනකොට කවුරු හරි ප්‍රෙග්නන්ට් වුණ කෙනෙක් නැංගොත් එයාට අපි ෂීට් එක දෙනවා. හරිද? එතකොට මේ වගේ දේවල් ඔයාලා කොහොමද අඳුරගන්නේ? So how you identify this is ethic, this is not ethic? යනවා. මේවා මේ rules දීලා නැහැ. ඔයාලට ඉගෙන දෙය කියන්නේ. මේක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් නෑ ethics කියලා හඳේ. So doing the right things. Okay. So identify this is ethics or this is not ethics. Society. Okay. Society එකෙන් කට්ටිය කියලා තියෙනවා. කට්ටිය ඇසෙනවා මේ වගේ දේවල් කරනවා. Okay. මේ වගේ හරි දේවල් කරනවා. මේ වගේ දේවල් කරන්නේ නැහැ. Okay. Other than that, options. Based on outputs. Based on outputs. Based on outputs. Okay. What do you mean by outputs?
36. Yeah, happy week. Because I don't think I say second one. The last one. Yeah. Second one.
Okay. So if you are doing the right thing, so we will receive some good things for our life. Okay. අපි මොනවා හරි හොඳ දෙයක් කළොත් අපිට මොකක් හරි හොඳ දෙයක් ලැබෙයි කියලා අපි believe කරනවා. Okay. So in here, when it's come to the okay. So these are coming under the normally we are calling the ethic. Okay, අපි කියනවා සාමාන්‍ය මේ වගේ දේවල් තමයි මේක තමයි හරි දේවල් මේ වගේ දේවල් අපර කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා. Okay. So when it's come to the professional ethics, so like in our general day-to-day life, so there are some professional ethics as well. Okay. In the companies, so there are some ethics. අපි companies වල වැඩ කරනකොට so we have some professional ethics. So these are we are calling the professional ethics. So අපි organization එකේ වැඩ කරගෙන යනකොට අපිට කරන්න ඕන දේවල් අපි හරි කියන දේවල් තමයි. Okay. So when it comes to the definition, what do you mean by ethics? Okay, so you have mentioned some answers. So ethics are code of moral principles that provide follow with respect what is right or wrong. But the correct, what is right and what is wrong. We need to identify what is the wrong thing. Okay, as when we are doing in our lives. Bus එක නගර පස්සේ DDA sheet එකක් දෙන්න කියලා. It is coming under the moral principle. Okay, but compliance with the CA Sri Lanka issued what? Code of ethics and the best practices. Okay, so in there they have mentioned how the professional accountant think about the chartered accountant. Okay, so they are Okay. Then tell me, so do these ethics change over time or and the players? මේ ethics කියන එක ළමයි වෙනස් වෙනවද? time එකේ time එක. What is your idea? What is your idea? Just saying no. Do ethics change? Slavery. කියන අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් වැඩ ගන්නවා. මොකද දැන් අර සාමාන්‍ය තියෙන අපේ අතු වල තේ කර්මාන්ත ශාලාවල ඒ ගැටේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අර වෙන කෙනෙක්ගේ වැඩ ගන්න කරන දේවල් ඒක commonly society එක හිතන එක මේ වගේ දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. Now when it comes to the nowadays, these things are not So in the Sri Lanka, normally we have ladies and there, so they are already sitting in the bus. Okay, but she has a petticoat. Okay. So that means that's a one example. Okay. Okay, so she has mentioned the settings are changed over the place. So can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Now,
Camera off the line. So I hope you can hear me, no? If not, please let me know. Okay. So we have discussed now what is the background of these headings. So now, from this point, so you will be tested in the exam. So may point in the තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි අහන්නේ වලගේ exam එක. Okay. So in the today's discussion, so we are mainly moving to the software framework and content of professional codes, and thirdly, fundamental principles and ethical threats, and finally, ethical safeguards and conceptual framework. Okay, so these are the key areas we are focusing on today. So when it's come to the Kohlberg stage of moral development, so this person, so he has identified some stage of moral development. Okay, so how these settings are coming, how these settings are developed. Okay, we අපි මේ දේ කරන්න හරියට මේ දේ තමයි හරියට මේ දේ තමයි වැරදි. So how this happen? කොහොමද මේ වගේ දේවල් අඳුරගන්නේ? Okay, so this Kohlberg, so they have that he has identified there is a framework. So in this framework, so there are some stages. So there are some stages. Okay. So in these stages, so you can see first stage is pre-conventional. So this stage is coming up to top. That means bottom to top. Okay, මේ පහළින් නම් තමයි උඩට යන්නේ. So in here there are three stages. So what are these stages? First one is pre-conventional and conventional, and finally third level is post-conventional. Just see these levels. So in this Goldberg stage of moral development, so there are, as I told you, there are three stages: pre-conventional level, conventional level, and the post-conventional level. Okay. So then, when it's come to the first level, so you can see it is coming under age 3 to age 7. Okay. Moral reasoning based on the reward and the punishment. Okay. So this is based on year 3 to year 7. අවුරුදු 3 ඉඳන් අවුරුදු 7 වෙනකම්. So how you identify this is writing as this is from පොඩි කාලේ අවුරුදු 3 ඉඳන් 7 වෙනකම්. දැන් ඉතින් අවුරුදු 7 වෙනකම්. Okay. How do you think about, how do you identify this is the good thing, this is the bad thing? Okay. මේක තමයි අපි කරන්නේ. This is the right thing. This is a thing. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing. This is the wrong thing. So how do you identify? Yeah, I need to schedule down. I'm a vendor. So based on the parents, okay, they are guided. I'm a year now. I'm going to get work. My gap work. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing. Based on the, you can see avoiding punishment. හරිද අපිට පනිෂ් වුණොත් අපි දන්නවා මේක කරන්න ඕනේ නැති දෙයක්. හරිද? මේක වැරදි දෙයක්. Okay. So if you are going to avoid the punishment from your parents, you can see avoiding punishment. Okay, this is coming under the ethics. Okay. Orang mana yang gitu, kita ya, yang level, tinggal, ada kuliah, double kan, double kuliah, ada punishment no, double apa tu, एक नरक दया, okay, avoiding punishment, if you are going to avoid the punishment, so it's a ethic, okay, and also the self-interest. Self-interest. Based on the 3 to 7, 8, so you are based on the punishment and the other thing. This is not to do. Okay, they are now in the step by step, you can identify these things are ethics, these things are okay. Then when it's come to the age 8 to age 30, age 8 to age 30. වයස අවුරුදු 8 ඉඳන් අපි කියනවා සාමාන්‍ය අවුරුදු 13 වෙනකම්. Okay. In this level, how you identify ethics? Then all are level, then on night and other factor all school and padanga. Okay. How you identify? So these things are good things. How to identify good ethics? They were not level. They were known as the identify. Because they are in school. From the teachers. Okay. The teachers. The rules and regulations are there. Okay. Other than that, okay. So in here you can see there are 2 levels. Okay. So in here, if you remember in your school level, good boy attitude. Okay. Good boy attitude. How do you know? Good boy attitude. Good girl attitude. Good boy attitude. Kita normally, tapi mama okay. So I'm a good boy, and then these are my attitude. Okay, mama, my lagi dewa kerana, so I'm a good boy. I'm a good girl. Then, good boy attitude are there in this conventional level. So, sama editing kaki dan kami yang lagi. Sama kita makin sama lagi yang kami kami ini dulu. Ya, kami ini udah ya. Kami kami ini school level. So like that. So in this type of good boy attitude or good girl attitude, so it means so there are some ethics. Okay. So these are the step by step how we are developing our ethics. Okay. And as you mentioned, the law and orders. Okay, like rules and regulations in the school. Okay. Some of the rules and regulations. So level. Ya kan. Untuk apa ini anu? Kalau apa ini anu? Kalau nanti yang untuk apa ni? Other than that, negative belum terus ni. Right, 7:30, 8 jana kuda. 7:30, 8 na 8 jana kuda school ini. Okay, so those are good things. Those are ethics. And for the ladies, type of this in the కొన్ని కొత్తలా is namala bol magdana to there are some colors as well okay verona so yeah so what I do I think it is good itu orang di BSAA itu apa nih? Okay, so those are coming under the laws and in the order. Okay, the principal gives so they have that is some guideline. Formally, I that means these things are coming under the conventional level, age 18 to age 30. Age 8 to 30. Then when it's come to the post-conventional level, that means you are in the adult. In this, I think you are now in this level. Now you are in this level. Okay. How now in that means in this level, this means adult level. So how you identify this is the good thing, this is the bad thing? How you identify right ethic? In your level. Ethics So, as a social aspect, it's up to the social contract, so how people are behaving in society. Okay. So by seeing that scenario, so you are identify, you are thinking this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. Samaje venne bohemond. Everybody balla be this is a good attitude, this is not good attitude, right? Okay. And then okay, so step by step, so we have developed some ethical background in our life. Okay, so then we are thinking like that. And first of all, importantly, so there are some principles that in a guideline. Okay, when you come to the corporate, so there are some guidelines like BSAA, so they have some code of ethics. So likewise, so that in the top level, when it comes to this principal level, so there are some rules. Okay, so there are some rules and guidelines. Okay, like code of ethics. Okay. Likewise. So these are the three stages. So this work, he has identified this framework. So how, as a person, develop your ethics? Okay. So there are three levels: pre-conventional, conventional, and the post-conventional. There may be a question from your exam as well. Okay. I have included a video here. यहाँ मैं डाउनलोड देने का वाला अटेंडेंस मार्क करेगा. Okay, see this video. So this video mainly based on this framework we have discussed.
Lawrence Kohlberg's theory claims that our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. The stages themselves are structured in 3 levels:
Not playing.
pre-conventional, conventional.
So check whether your work so you can pay that one. So there is a tutorial ethics one for your students. Okay, so in this video, so there is a scenario. So in the school, so you can see what happened in there.
When I think about how I divide my time, it's very clear. In Seattle, I volunteer with PETA Change.
Lawrence Kohlberg's theory, our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. The stages themselves are structured in Lawrence Kohlberg's theory claims that our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. The stages themselves are structured in 3 levels: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. To understand this better, imagine a conflict at school. There is a fight in the schoolyard. 2 ninth graders are beating up Tom. Those who watch the fight are at different stages of moral development. Let's see what they do and how they justify their behavior. At stage 1, we make moral judgments based on obedience and punishment. Finn's sense of good or bad is directly linked to whether he gets punished or not. Finn sees what is happening to his friend and wants to help, but he doesn't because he is afraid the teacher may punish him if he gets caught fighting. He asks himself, how can I avoid punishment? At stage 2, we are motivated by self-interest. Mary decides to intervene and help Tom. She knows that she might get punished, but she also knows that she could become a victim herself someday. If she helps Tom now, he might help her in the future. She is asking herself, what's in it for me? At stage 3, interpersonal accord and conformity guide our moral judgment. Betty sees the fight and wants to intervene, but when she realizes that all the others are just watching, she decides not to get involved. She wants others to see that she is a good girl who is conforming with the ethics of the community. She asks herself, what do others think of me? At stage 4, we value authority and want to maintain social order. When the teacher sees the group fighting, he immediately steps in and shouts, stop, fighting at school is forbidden. He feels that, above all, it is important to follow the rules, otherwise chaos breaks out. He feels it is his duty to uphold the rules that sustain a functioning society. He asks himself, how can I maintain law and order? At stage 5, we understand rules as a social contract, as opposed to a strict order. Jessie, who watches from afar, is not sure how she feels about this. To her, rules make sense only if they serve the right purpose. Obviously, the school rules prohibit fighting, but maybe Tom deserves to finally learn his lesson. Just yesterday, he punched a young girl from grade 1. She asks herself, does a rule truly serve all members of the community? At stage 6, we are guided by universal ethical principles. All those involved now have to face the headmaster. He first explains the school rules and why they exist. He then clarifies that rules are valid only if they are grounded in justice. The commitment to justice carries with it an obligation to disobey unjust rules. The headmaster's highest moral principle is compassion. He believes that all people should learn to understand each other's viewpoints and that they don't feel alone with their feelings. He asks, what are the abstract ethical principles that serve my understandings of justice? At the pre-conventional level, Finn is driven by fear and Mary by self-interest. Both judge what is right or wrong by the direct consequences they expect for themselves and not by social norms. This form of reasoning is common among children. At the conventional level, Betty responds to peer pressure, and the teacher follows the rules. Their morality is centered around what society regards as right. At this level, the fairness of rules is seldom questioned. It is common to think like this during adolescence and adulthood. At the post-conventional level, Jesse knows that things are complicated because individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own morality. The headmaster follows a universal ethical idea, at complete disconnect with what society thinks or the rules say. To him, everything is solved through compassion. The right behavior, in his opinion, is therefore never a means to an end, but always an end in itself. Not every person reaches this level. The American psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg based his work on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. In order to confirm his theory of stages of moral development, Kohlberg interviewed boys between the ages of 10 and 16. He analyzed how they would justify their decision when confronted with different hypothetical moral dilemmas. We will now present to you the most famous moral dilemma Kohlberg presented to his students. Let's see what you would do. The Heinz dilemma of the production cost. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, was poor and could not afford to buy the drug, not even with the financial help of his friends. Heinz then asked the pharmacist to sell it to him for half the price, but he refused. To save the life of his wife, Heinz broke into the man's laboratory and stole the medicine. Now tell us, should Heinz have stolen the drug? Would it change anything if Heinz didn't love his wife? What if the person dying was not his wife, but a stranger? Should the police arrest the druggist for murder if the wife had died? Please write your answers and their justifications in the comments below.
Okay, it's one example. So you can refer those type of videos also available related to this concept, the YouTube or any other sources. Okay. Okay. Now we will move into the contents of professional codes. Okay. So there are mainly three contents. So how is ethics are developed? Okay. So what type of contents we have? In here, when it's come to the content of professional codes, normally we have three contents. Okay. First one is public interest. Second one is establishment of fundamental principles. And then, so we have conceptual framework. That means what is the framework to address the threats to compliance and apply safeguards. Okay. So there are three contents. We see one by one here. So when it's come to the public interest, what do you mean by this public interest? So these ethics are based on the public. Okay. So මේ ethics තමයි develop වෙන්නේ public එකේ තියෙන interest එක අනුව. මොකද්ද public interest කියලා කියන්නේ? What do you mean by this public interest? So people are expecting these type of people, so they need to behave like this. Okay. So this is what as an example in chartered account. The public, so what they are expecting from a chartered account. So there is a public interest. So they are expecting the chartered accountant should be dispatched. So they need to behave these things likewise. The chartered accountant can again. So these things are coming under the public interest. Okay. So how people are expecting from the professional. Okay. So that is coming under the public interest. So based on this public interest, so we are developing the fundamental principles. Okay. කලින් ගත්තර බෞද්ධ කට්ටිය දානවා 500. හරිද? පබ්ලික් එක ඉන්ටරෙස්ට් කරන්නේ වගේ දේවල් නොකළ යුතුයි කියන්නේ. Okay. මරන්න බෑ. බොරු කියන්න බෑ. Likewise. So based on that, so it is we have developed previously it's also there establishment of fundamental principle. Yeah, those are fancy. Okay. Fundamental principles are there. Okay, based on the public interest, so we need to develop the fundamental principle. So what is the fundamental ethics we need to follow? Okay. So as an example, when it's come to the people are expecting some ethics from the chartered accountant. So for the chartered accountant, so they have the code of ethics. Code of ethics. Okay. So as the CA, so these are the basic, then these are the fundamental principles they have to follow. So we are discussing those things in the next slide. And also when it's come to the conceptual framework that address the threats to compliance and applying safeguards. And ethics මෙහෙම අපි ඉන්නෝනේ කියලා අපි හිතුවට ඉතින් හරි විදිහට ඉන්නෝනේ කියලා හිතුවට හැබැයි ඒක කරන්න බැරි වෙන අවස්ථා ඉන්න පුළුවන්. So those things we are calling threats. හරිද? දැන් කොච්චර හොඳ ඉන්න හදුවත් අපිට එහෙම දෙයක් නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරිද? දැන් උදාහරණයක් විතර අපි දැන් අවුරුදු දෙකක කලින් තාරට එක කිලෝ කන්ෆරන්ස් එකක්. Remember? So in this conference, so there are some politicians are there. Remember? So that's huge people raise their voices why CA is inviting all these type of politicians. So they are conference. Politicians like they are conference. So what he is expecting, how our leaders are thinking. Okay. So they have highlighted our leaders in our country. So how they are thinking. They are taking the target done. So in that conference, one member has mentioned ministers. Okay, the minister කියලා කියන්නේ අපේ අමාත්‍යාංශය කියතොත් එයා තමයි ප්‍රධාන. So ministers can't do fraud. So they can't do fraud without the support of, he has mentioned, 2 people. Secretary of the minister and also the accountant. Meaning I support the money minister against the protect and the he has mentioned the state. The protect and the support again to a much and the country accountant. He has mentioned like that. So, see the ethics that other people. So, that we can start that so in that, those people are not coming to the job. We can be highlighted in so he has mentioned. So without the support of the accountant and the secretary of the he can't do like that. So when it's come to the accountant, so it's coming under our context. අපි තමයි chartered accountant ලා we කරන්නේ chartered එකේ. Okay. So these things හිතන්න අපි කොච්චර හොඳට කරන්න හැදුවා. So there are some threats. Okay. minister කියනවා මේ වගේ දේවල් කරලා දාන්න. හරිද? එතකොට accountant and also the secretary, so they have to do these things. Okay. To save their job. Likewise. So those things we are calling threats. හරිද? මේ වගේ දේවල් අපි කියනවා threats කියලා. මොකද මේ things හරියට කරන්න බැරි වෙන අපිට තියෙන කරුණ මොනවාද? So what type of threats we have? And then to compliance and apply a safeguard. හරිද? එහෙම තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. හැබැයි so there are some safeguards as well. මේ වගේ දේවල් නවත්ත ගන්න as a company. So they have established some safeguards. Okay. So these are the 3 levels. These are the 3 contents. So based on the public interest, So we are establishing the fundamental principle. So if we have fundamental principles, so there are some threats to do this type of ethical work. Okay. And also if we have threats, and also we have the safeguard to minimize those type of threats. Okay. So these are three conditions. So every professional code of ethics, so we have these three levels. Yeah. We'll see one by one. I think these words are very familiar for you. Have you heard these things? In the auditing, integrity, objectivity, professional competence and behavior, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Okay. The fundamental principle of professional ethics. So in here, in the code of ethics, best practices in that issued by CES Sri Lanka. So in this section, 110 to 115. So this is based on the new one. 110 to 115. It's mentioned these things. The fundamentals set out in the code of ethics for professional accountants, both PA in business as well as PA in public practice. What do you mean by this PA? In the professional accountant. Okay. Professional accountant in business. Now the professional accountants in business and professional accountants in public practice. In this code of ethics, so they have mentioned there are separate scenarios for these two people, both in public accountants or professional accountants in business and also professional accountants in public practice. These type of ethics they should have. Who are the people like this? Both that in professional accountants in business. So can you tell some example? A CFO. So the persons who are working in the companies, okay, in the mercantile sector, okay, and when it's come to the professional accountant in the public practice, mean the audit firm, audit partner. Okay. So these are the two peoples. Okay. When it's come to the fundamental principles set out in the code of ethics for the professional accountants, that means these two people. So there are some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 principles they have mentioned. What is the first one? Integrity. Integrity means to be straightforward and honest. To be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationship. Okay, so these words should be there. Okay, normally we are testing this one also in your exam. Okay, to be straightforward and honest in all professional, business and relationship. What is the meaning of this one? As a professional accountant, so when they are doing their business relationship, so they should be straightforward and honest. එයාලා කරගෙන යන මේ business relationship වලදී යාලා අවංක සහ කෙලින් ඉන්න ඕන කියලා කියනවා. හරි කෙලින් ඉන්න ඕන කියලා කියනවා. හරි තීරණයක් ගන්න දෙයක් and also you should be the honest. අවංක වෙන්න. Okay. In our professional business relationship, integrity implies fair and dealing truthfulness. සත්‍යවාදී වෙන්න ඕන. අපි කරන හැම business relationship එකම අපි ඒ කරන වැඩේට අවංක වෙන්න ඕනේ, ස්වාධීන වෙන්න ඕනේ, and also සත්‍යවාදී වෙන්න ඕනේ. හරි කරතු දෙන්න ඕනේ. Okay. The professional accountant shall not knowing be associated with reports, communication, returnals, false or misleading information. Okay. අපි හරි කරතු communicate කරන්න ඕන අපේ අදාළ පාර්ශවයන්ට. Okay, so in here when it's come to integrity, so this should be there to be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationship. Then when it's come to the objectivity, not to compromise professional law business judgment because of bias, conflict of interest, or undue influence of others. Objectivity. What do you mean by this objectivity? Objectivity means, so in a decision, it should not be biased. Okay, so this decision can be professional or business judgment because of the bias, conflict of interest, undue influence of others. Think about as an example. I think some of your opinion as your work. So think about we are going to audit the company goal as an example. Think about Delhi. Okay, so you are going to audit for a company goal Delhi. Okay, but when you are doing before when you are going to that company that your client, so you have already purchased shares of that company. Like an average area, and calling why won't take company shares simple. Okay. So now think about this one. When you are taking the professional and business judgment, so you have some conflict of interest. Okay, conflict of interest. Why? Expenses very profitable because they don't simply. Dan profit scenarios हमारे profit because why? We have a conflict of interest because we have the shares of that company. So that type of scenarios can be there. When you do so people profit extraction that's allowed interest rate. Okay, so because we are humans, no. So then based on these type of things, so objectivity can be there. Okay, based on the judgment. And when it comes to professional competence and duty, to maintain professional knowledge and skill at the level required to ensure that a client or employer receive competent professional service based on current developments in practice, legislation, and the techniques. What is the meaning of this professional competence and due care? Professional competence and due care. Competency. As a chartered accountant, you should have a competence to do numbers. So think about the easier calculation. So if you have any experience to the expected rate of calculation based on the SLA time. Okay. So think about, so there is a chartered accountant. So here we have the chartered accountant. There are some level. So we have to pass. We have executive, business, business, corporate, and the so to be a chartered accountant, so you have to complete these three levels, and also there are some levels as well, and then you have to finally place the case study, and also you have to practice 4 years to sign to take the time. So think about in this study, so you could have something of the subject. In there is a question on SLFRS 9. We have the exterior credit cost to life size. So think about SLFRS 9 with Prasnya because the chartered accountant can in Prasnya then so because you don't have the knowledge regarding that one, it's not an issue. So pass the exam, you don't need to do the question. The exam pass and we have pass and we are not saying I have pass. Also, you have a case study, and also now we are currently now as you now as a Java example, so you are working in as a director or any other senior level. Okay. The client asks you to now we are like in our the client already you know a bank here so the commercial bank. Okay, now we are working as a leader of the commercial bank. Okay, normally so these type of financial bank so they have this type of financial instrument. So they have asked you to calculate the expected credit cost, ECA, still calculation. So now you have the proper idea regarding the self-forest line. Okay, self-forest line here order per idea. And I copy the inner number for the right answer the counter make a get close get up there to get in. That's the other than and the CA and get the American number for my yeah, again, like so that's I think this yes. I think I know everything. If I reject this thing, it's really impact our reputation. Okay, so like this, so they are the I make a get to further in මගේ reputation මම තාරට අපට දැන් මට මේක මම ගෙට්ටුව මට මේක ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙනවා මගේ reputation like හරිද දැන් මොකක්ද ඔය කරන්නේ as ethical person හරි ඔය අලබල so now what's your response so the commercial bank so the CFO so you ask you to calculate the expected so they have already done so they have asked you to do this one. So what is your response? This year for the question. As ethical person. To maintain professional knowledge and skill at the level required to ensure that client or employer receives competent professional service based on current development in practice, legislation and the techniques. Then is from the next one, the professional accountant should act diligently and accordance with the applicable techniques and professional standards when providing professional service. As ethical chartered accountant, if you have that type of professional knowledge and the skill to that level, okay, then what is skill competence knowledge technically you cannot take that job. Okay. So then as a professional competence and due care, so if the CA has this quality, this ethic, so he should not take this responsibility. Okay, so you should have proper knowledge, skill for this level to take that job. And likewise, okay, to do a good job, to provide a professional service to your client or employer, so you should have professional knowledge and skill at the level required. Clear? knowledge skill competency otherwise you no need to take that job. Likewise, so if you have the proper knowledge and if you have the proper skill and competence, so you can take it. Otherwise, reject. That's better. And confidentiality. Confidentiality. To respect the confidentiality of information acquired as a result of professional business relationship, and therefore not disclose any such information to the third parties without proper specific authority unless there is a legal provisions right or duty to disclose. No use of information for the personal advantage of the professional accountant or third party. What is the meaning of this confidentiality? Then as an example, you are working a director of a company. Okay, so we have discussed the corporate governance no. So you are working executive director of a company. Okay. So in the board meeting, so there you have decided the board decide. So we are going to so then we are going to distribute the dividend. තමයි plan කරගෙන කියලා අපි board meeting එකේ discuss කරනවා. But you have a friend so that in the major shareholder you have friend in the company. So you are saying so in this case so we are going to distribute the dividend. අපි dividend එක distribute කරන්න හදන්නේ. ඒ නිසා share stake දුවන්න එපා. So likewise so you are saying to your friend. So අපි යන්න mock certificate එකක් personal benefit or personal benefit or so it is not a good thing. Okay, so whatever decisions you are taking in your company side, so it will be confidential. Party third party disclose karana bad. In here you can see professional business relationship. Therefore, not disclose any such information to the third parties without the proper specific authority. Like a company authority, it's okay to share. You can share, otherwise you cannot share this information. Okay, unless there is a legal professional right. So there is a scenario here. The legal professional side. After network කියලා අපේ company එකට ඒ company ගන්න service එකක් හරි hostel so in this type of scenario so you can disclose the request of these type of legal or professional right. Okay. Otherwise you cannot share the company information to the third parties without the approval of the company's authority. So that we are calling the confidentiality. And the next thing is professional behavior. So these things actually not having our Sri Lankan people normally. Most of the behavior. Professional behavior means okay, to comply with relevant laws and regulation and avoid any action that discredit the profession. Discredit means that means decrease, reduce the professional image. So whatever the things you are doing for the whatever the actions you are taking to discredit the profession. Okay, so these things should not be there. Okay, if you are a good ethical person, the professional behavior should be there. Okay, okay. So we are taking professional we are doing these some actions to discredit the provision. The chartered accountant behave as a you are taking some action based on like script for the provision. So then we should have professional behavior. Okay? It should be there. Okay, so these are the fundamental principles of the professional ethics. Okay, so these things are available in the code of ethics in the best practices. So first one is integrity, second one is objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and the final one is professional behavior. Okay, there may be a question now. There may be a question in the exam. So we will practice one question at the end of the class. Normally we are not asking question. So what are the fundamental principles of professional ethics? So we are saying we are providing a case study, in a case study. So we'll discuss one case study at the end. So there is a scenario. So there is a scenario, and then you have to identify. So in that scenario, do we have integrity? Do we have objective? Professional competence and due care, confidentially. Likewise, so you have to identify based on that case. And then you can say, so think about this, there is no confidentiality. Then approximately, account information, so that you can see in that case study. So there is a confidentiality issue in that company, okay, in that professional account. So then you can identify based on the code of ethics professional account. So there is a issue with the confidentiality. So then you can mention and you can write whatever the things you need to highlight. Okay. Okay, so after this one, we will take a break. In here, when it comes to exception for the confidentiality. So if there is a confidentiality there, අපි හිතනවා කිව්වා කලින් කතා කරා මේ තොරතුරු third party එකට දෙන්න බෑ. Okay, but so there are some exceptions. හැබැයි exceptions ටිකක් තියෙනවා. Okay, as I told in the previously, disclosure is permitted by law and is authorized by the client or the employer. Okay. අපේ company එකේ තොරතුරු පිළිගන්නට දෙන්න පුළුවන්. So what type of scenario? It is permitted by law, is authorized by the client or the employer. Client okay කරනවා නැත්නම් employer okay කරනවා yes share කරන්න it's okay. And next one is disclosure is required by law. මේ disclosure එක required කරලා තියෙනවා නම් law එකේ අපිට ඒ ටික disclose කරන්න ඕනේ. For example, production of documents or other provision of evidence is the cause of legal proceedings. And disclose to the appropriate public authorities of infringements of the laws that come to right. Okay. මොකක් හරි නීතියකින් කියලා තියෙනවා මොකක් හරි law එකකින් කියලා තියෙනවා මෙන්න මේ discloses මෙන්න මේ sorry මේ information disclose කරන්න ඕනේ අර appropriate portion සහ in other scenarios, in other platforms, so they have to disclose. Means disclosure is required by law. Okay, so this is the another scenario. The third one is there is a professional duty or right to disclose. There is a professional duty or right to disclose when not prohibited by law. So what type of example? To comply with the quality review of a member body or another professional body. So like a quality review. Okay, quality එක කොහොමද? To respond to an inquiry of or investigation by a member body or regulatory body. To respond an inquiry or investigation. හරිද මොකක් හරි inquiry එකක් කරනවා නම් මොකක් හරි investigation එකක් කරනවා ඒකට අදාළව අපිට professional අපිට duty එකක් තියෙනවා මේ information share කරන්න. To protect the professional interest of professional accountant in legal proceeding. And finally, to comply with the technical standard and ethical requirements. Okay. So, our carbon disclosure, publish annual reports, so those are coming under this scenario. Okay. So we have professional duty to disclose this. Okay. Carbon footprint annually disclose කරන්න ඕනේ. So these are the exception for the confidentiality issue. Okay. 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 I will take a 15-minute break. No. Okay. Okay. විනාඩි 15ක් අපි break එකක් කරන් යමු. 10:30 නේද? Please come at 10:40. Yeah.
Grey color job, white color top, சின்ன பூ ரோஸ் கலர் பூ வச்சு கிரே கலர் இலை மாதிரி வந்து ட்ரெஸ் பண்ணி ஒரு சின்ன குட்டி வரும் அதை எடுத்துமா Abdullah Badi, Ami, Bila pun kata tadi, kata ada cerita kemarin dia tu lupa. Karena saya lagi ni cuma objektif lain. Ya udah dia aku apa lagi? Ya. Hello, देखो तुम लोग ध्यान नहीं दे लेती देखो तुम एक बार तो होमवर्क करने बैठे चोरी करना है चोरी करना है माता तो कहाँ माता तो एक आई स्टोर से अम्मी लाल इधर मारा कि
ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದ್ನೇ ಯಾರು ಏನಾದ್ರು ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಇವಲ್ಲಿ
adanya மூஞ்சி அப்படி போறேன் தானியே மூஞ்சி எஸ்எல்எஸ் காஸ் இதா பைபிள் வந்து சரி யாஸ்கே ஒரு த்ரோன் இருக்கா சொல்லு
Okay. Next, we are going to discuss regarding the threats. Okay. Threats to the fundamental principle. Okay. So if you are trying to be a good ethical person, so what type of threat as the counters we have? Okay. So what type of threats? මොනවාගේ තරදෙන්ද අපිට තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. So compliance with the fundamental principle of professional ethics may potential be threat by wide range of different circumstances. Okay. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට සාමාන්‍ය මේ වගේ threats එන්න පුළුවන්. අපි වැඩ කරගෙන යනකොට. These generally fall into 5 categories. Okay. So these threats we are identifying mainly into 5 categories. So this is based on the section 120.6 A3 and 200.6A in the Code of Ethics. Okay. So you can refer this Code of Ethics as well. Okay. So there are 5 threats we have identified in this Code of Ethics. First one is self-interest threat and self-review threat and advocacy threat and familiarity threat and the intimidation threats. Okay. So we'll go through one by one. So what is self-interest threat? Self-interest threat. You read whatever the explanations are there. Financial or other interest of professional accountant or of an intermediate family member inappropriately influence judgment or behavior. Okay. In here, you can see financial or other interest. Okay. It can be financial, it can be other interest as well. Of a professional accountant or intermediate family member. Okay. It can be a accountant, maybe, and also there may be a family member. Okay. Immediate family member inappropriately influence the judgment or behavior. Okay. So this is we are calling self-interest threat. So what type of example? You can see financial interest, loan and guarantees, incentive compensation arrangement, personal use of corporate asset, external commercial pressures, acceptance of gift. So these are some example for self-interest trait. So okay, so we'll take one example in here. Think about this personal use of corporate asset. Okay. Company vehicle, you know, so your immediate family members. So think about your wife. So you are CFO of the company or chairman. So your wife is already a employee of that company or any other person. Think about the financial manager. So you ask you to take this corporate asset. Okay. So your personal usage, personal benefit. So these things we are calling the self-interest rate. Okay. It can be happen the financial or it can be happen the other side as well, financial or non-financial. Okay. So then when it comes to self-review threat. Okay. Here I missed to mention here, these are basically in the professional accountants in the businesses. Those people working in the company side, in the mercantile sector. Okay. So in the next slide, we are discussing. So what type of threats the person who are working in the practice. Okay. Next one is self-review. Self-review means evaluation of a judgment by accountant who made the judgment or a member the same organization. Okay. Review threat means self-review. Self-review. So you do the evaluation, but you made the judgment. Okay. And also you are reviewing that work. Okay. I've done the accountant here in the company. So you have transaction ticket. මේක ඕකේද මේක හරියට කරලා තියෙනවද කියලා ඔයාම රිවිව් කරනවා. ඔයාලා කරන වැඩේ ඔයාම ආපහු රිවිව් කරන එකටවත් මේ කියන්නේ self review trade. Okay. So some examples in here, business decisions being subject to review and justification by the same accountant responsible for making those decisions. Okay. Or preparing data supporting them. Self-review threat. Okay. Then advocacy threat. So what we mean by advocacy threat? Accountant promoting a position or opinion to the point where objective may be compromised. So we have an example in here. Furthering the employer's cause aggressively without regard the reasonableness of the statement made. Furthering legitimate goals of employee organization would not generally create an advocacy threat. Okay, what is the meaning of this one? What is the advocacy threat? Advocacy. So think about as an minister. So he has asked to a counselor. Counselor the make around. Yeah, like okay. Aggressively say. So if you are saying if you are doing this one, I will promote you. Okay, I will give some bonus for you. Okay. Again, බලපෑමක් කරනවා මේ දේ කරන්න. ඒ වල තව ප්‍රොමෝට් කරන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ආයෙත් මොකක්ද තව බෙනිෆිට් එකක් දෙන්න. increment එකක් දෙන්න. Likewise, so he is aggressively influenced by some statements. Furthering legitimate goals of employee organization would not generally create an advocacy state. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් organization එකට ඇතුළේ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. One person is saying like this, so this advocacy threat is okay. And familiarity threat. What is the meaning of this familiarity threat? A close relationship resulting in excessively trusting or sympathy for others. Familiarity, that means, so there's a huge close relationship. So think about the long association of business contract. Okay, so think about as an example. There is a supplier in the organization, so he has supplied some material to a company during 20 years, right? Okay, how to it's a supply. So in this type of scenario, so there may be a family related threat. Okay, relationship එක ගොඩක් කාල. So supply කියනකොට සමහරట్లాට මම මේ price එක වැඩි කරලා මම material ටික ඔයාලට company එකට ගන්නවා. ඇත්තටම price එක වැඩි කියලා නැහැ. හැබැයි price increment එක benefit එක 50 කිලෝමීටර්. Likewise, so if there is a long relationship with your in the persons with the organization, so there may be a family related threat. Okay. And intimidation threat. Accountant not acting objectively because of actual or perceived pressures. Threat of dismissal from employment in face of a dominant personality. What is the meaning of this one? And intimidation threat. This also from a pressure from one person. Okay. So he is saying to do this one. So as the person, as a junior member, so you have to do that one. Okay. And he is a senior person. So if you ask to do that one, so you have to do. Okay. So likewise. So in the professional account in the business, so you have these threats normally. So we have categorized into 5 levels. Okay, self-interest threat, self-review threat, advocacy, familiarity, and the intimidation threat. Okay. So when it's come to the next one, so there are some threats for the professional accountants in the practice. Okay, professional accountant in practice. The same threats we have categorized, but some examples are different. Okay. Self-interest. So these are mainly for the auditors. Okay, auditors. Self-interest threat, financial or other interests of professional accountant or an immediate family member inappropriately influence judgment or behavior. So what type of example? Having a financial interest in client. Financial interest in client. One udaharane buy company shares target here, but we are going to audit that company. So you have a financial interest threat. Okay. Then when it comes to self-review threat, most of the small audit firms doing this one. Okay, auditing financial statement prepared by the client. Okay, so in your self review, most of the small audit firms, so they are preparing their accounts, the company's accounts, and also they are doing the audit. Self review. Here company again command again audit firm company accounts other than the flow, annual accounts other than the flow, and also the audit teams are the same for that. Audit team आपको किला हमारा अनुभव Okay. There you will have a self-review thread. And advocacy thread, advocating the client plays in lawsuit. Okay. And familiarity, audit team member having family at the client. Okay, audit team member having a family at the client. Within company, then wife or family member. There is a family member in the client case. So there is a family case. And the other what is the part? Or your wife must be a co-leader in a company. So whatever the decision, whatever judgment you are taking on that company, so you have that thing again. Normally you are again from a decision negative another, and from make action another, from make report another. So because we are humans now, so then so likewise, so these type of family threats are there. And okay, and intimidation threat, the threat of replacement due to disagreement. So normally in the government sector, intimidation threat. So based on the pressure. Government transfer something. Police officers like so there are some transfers as well based on the perceived pressure from the top level. Okay, based on the perceived pressure from the top level. So the replacement and the disagreement. Likewise. So these are coming under the threats for the professional accountants in the practice. That means the auditor side. Okay, now we are moving to the third section of the content. So what are the three contents we have mentioned? Public interest, and then basic principles we have discussed. Now we are moving to the how we are going to address these ethical issues. Okay, that means first thing is the applying the conceptual framework. Okay, conceptual framework. The circumstances in which professional accountants operate may create a specific threat to compliance with the fundamental principle. It is impossible to define every situation that creates threat to compliance with the fundamental principle and specify the appropriate action. In addition, the nature of engagement and work assignment may differ, and consequently, different threats may be created requiring the application of different safeguards. So based on the different people, different scenarios, so we have to take different decisions. Okay, so these things we are calling. So we have to take different safeguards based on the this type of nature of the work, and work assignment. Likewise, so we have to think about the different safeguards. Okay. So therefore, this code established a conceptual framework that requires professional accountants to identify the threats. Okay, so this is the framework. ඉස්සලා අපි අඳුර ගන්න ඕනේ මොකක්ද අපිට තියෙන threat එක. So this is the framework. So there are 3 levels. So in this framework, so first one is you have to identify what type of threats we have. මට තියෙන self interest threat එකක්ද threat එකක්ද so first of all you have to identify what type of threat we have, then evaluate the threat identified. So ඊට පස්සේ ඔයා කරන්න ඕනේ මට මේ threat එකේ තියෙන level එක මොකක්ද, what type of level, like as an example it is a low risk and medium risk, and also sometimes you can have a high threat. So you have to identify the level. What are the threat again? Level එක කොහොමද? Then final one is you have to address the threat. So these are we are calling the safeguards. Okay. So first one is you have to identify the threat and evaluate the threat. That means that you have to identify the level, and then finally you have to address these threat. Okay. So now we are coming to how to address. Okay. So you have identified, and also you have identified the level, and then you are going to address the threats. So these are the sections. Okay. The enhanced conceptual framework emphasizes that threats are addressed either by eliminating the circumstances creating the threats. මොකද්ද පළවෙනිටම තියෙන්නේ? අපිට මේ threats එකට address කරන්න තියෙන පළවෙනි method එක මොකද්ද? Eliminating the circumstances creating the threats. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? What is the first thing we can do? How to address? Eliminate the circumstances creating the threat. Eliminate mean eliminate. Eliminate කරනවා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? Okay. Eliminating the circumstances creating the threat. මෙන්න මේ threat එක වෙන්න තියෙන සාධක අපි අයින් කරනවා. උදාහරණයකට හිතන්න මම කලින් ගත්ත උදාහරණය මිනිස්ටර් කියනවා මෙන්න මේ වගේ වැරද්දක් කරන්න. So what is the thing you can do in this scenario? Dan udaharak kita document process lagi ini sekira ini ada potential negatif yang accept. So in this scenario, eliminate the circumstances creating the threat. As a counter. So means to say saying means to here I put approval like supply means to say so as a counter as chief accountant no secretary means so what are you doing, what are you doing? Potential. Okay. Okay. So you have to be in the correct process. Okay. So if we is saying to do this one, so you have to go with the right process. Right process, the correct way. For this process, that means when you are going this process, whatever the things you can do, so you can eliminate. So these people, okay. So think about there is the supplier. So if his value is low, so then you can reject this supplier. So then if there is a person, so if there is some organization. So if these people are really threat for our company, so then you can eliminate those people by applying the correct and also the applicable process. Then next one is applying safeguards where they are available or capable of reducing the identified threat to acceptable level. So if you have safeguard, what type of safeguard? ඉතින් කලින් උදාහරණයම සප්ලයි කෙනෙක් දාලා තියෙනවා හිතන්න අපි අපේ වැලියු එක මිලියන 10යි කියලා මිලියන 10ට වඩා අඩු quotation තියෙනවා අපි අයින් කරන්න. So that is a safeguard. Okay, that means normally in the private companies we are calling internal controls. Okay, so we have internal control protocols. Okay, so if these things are not coming under these our internal control, so we can reject. Yes. So if we have safeguards like internal control, so we can apply if these safeguards are available for our process and also capable for the reducing identified threats, so we can accept. Then final thing is declining or ending the specific professional activity or service. Like done as auditor, you are going to do a audit of a reputed company. Okay. And then there is a major issue is arising. So think about the going concern issue. What is the going concern issue again? In the auditing. Going concern. There is a separate note as well. But going concern is business trigger. Tiga apa? Ini orang going concern as நாம் சொல்லுங்க அப்படி அது කරගෙන So the business trigger going concern නැත්නම් අපි මොකක්ද කරන්න ඕනේ? So we have to report as auditor. Okay. But think about the CFO of the company. So he has also saying as a you are a partner of that company. So he asked you to take this 10 million or 100 million rupees and don't mention this going concern issue or any other issues in our report. Or million දහයක් දෙන්න, clear 100ක් දෙන්න. ඒ ගාන තියාගෙන මේ වගේ දේවල් report කරන්න. As ethical chartered accountant, optional chartered accountant. So what is your responsibility? Take 10 million and go. Yes. That's already happened. So we are given, so we are facing some difficulties. So then it can be happen. And we can see at the moment. These are normally happen. So these things not to be done. Okay, මේ වගේ දේවල් කරන්න බෑ ළමයි. So if you are in the ethical chartered accountant, so decline or end in the specific professional activity or service. Okay. ඒ මොනවද මොකද කරන්නේ? ඊළඟ engagement එක එන්න මතලා අපි ගන්න කියලා අයින් කරලා යන්න පුළුවන්. In the government sector, the ministry කියනවා නම් මේ වගේ දේවල් දිගින් දිගට කරන්න කියලා, so you can decide. So you can apply for a transfer for the separate place. Okay. So how to address? So these are the ways. Okay, based on the conceptual framework. Okay. First one is eliminating the circumstances creating the threats, and then next one is applying safeguards where they are available or capable of reducing the identified threat to an acceptable level. The final one is decline or end in the specific professional activity or service. Okay, when it comes to safeguard, so there are two ways. Okay, safeguard ගත්තට පස්සේ ළමයි කොටස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. Okay, the ethical codes outline appropriate safeguard that must be put in place to eliminate or reduce such threat to acceptable level. මේ safeguard වලින් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ ළමයි? මේ අපිට තියෙන threat එක acceptable level එකට අපි ඒක අඩු කරගන්නවා. reduce කරගන්නවා. Okay. There are two general categories of ethical safeguard identifying guidance for accountants in practice. හරිද? මේ තියෙන අපේ safeguards basically there are two categories. Okay. First one is safeguards created by provision, legislation and the regulation. හරිද? මේ safeguard තියෙනවා කොටස් දෙකයි. පළවෙනි එක තමයි safeguard created by the provision, legislation and the regulation. Provision එකෙන් අපිට කියලා දෙන්න. And also there are some rules and regulations. And the next one is safeguards in the workplace for accountants in business, like normally the internal controls. ඉතින් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට රුපියල් ලක්ෂ 5ක payment එකක් ගන්න සාමාන්‍ය NSI කරා. Likewise. So the safeguards. So there may be a accountant or the CFO, finance manager. Likewise. So there are some authority levels. Okay. ලක්ෂ 5ක approve කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ දෙන්නයි. මේ තුන් දෙනා. Likewise. So these are coming under the safeguards in the workplace. Okay. And also, so whatever the things we have discussed under the code of ethics, so some safeguards are created by the provision, legislation and the regulation. So these are the main two types of safeguards. Okay, so there are some safeguards. So you can see example of ethical safeguards created by the provision, legislation or regulation. Okay, the first one, first category. So read these safeguards available here. So there are some ethical safeguards created by the provision. Provision again may safeguards create කරලා තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. And also rules and the regulations. First one is educational training and experience requirement for entry to the provision. Okay, to be a chartered accountant. So what type of educational and training experience we require? So we use complete the all level of CA subjects. And also we need the experience and also you have to do some in a English subject. Okay, so to enter this type of provision, so you should have educational training and the experience. Okay, so these are one ethical safeguard to enter this provision. And continuing professional development requirement. Okay, so you have developed your profession. Okay, and CA so you have to continuously develop your requirements. Okay, and the corporate governance regulation. Corporate governance අපි කතා කරා. So what type of regulation we have in the corporate side? Okay, other corporate governance කොහොමනේ CA product Indian animal here. And a product which they got a wallet of light. Or either that's a single. All of it. So you will have the integration within 30 minutes. All of them start playing on. ගොඩක් කට්ටිය දැන් කවදාවත් ඉතින් මට පස්සේ කතා කරලා මේ ආයෙ ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා ඒක ටයිප් එකේ කරන්න අමාරුකමක් තියෙනවා. We set up the online starting Sunday 9 to 10, 9 to 10, 9 to 10. So you can log in, you can do this. Communication, listening, ability. Particular balance, corporate governance. Personality. So if you have any digital lead, so you can do that. Okay, I will update the syllabus guideline and start starting the next page. Okay, when it comes to corporate governance regulations, so in that corporate governance regulations, so there are some rules. Okay, board should be balanced. Likewise, so there are some guidelines. Okay, and also there are some variety. So we have discussed some rules and regulations based on the corporate governance and the professional standards. Okay, professional standards. So like code of ethics, best practices. So they have mentioned based on the what type of professional ethics we need to follow as a professional accountant. Okay, and the final one is professional or regulatory monitoring and disciplinary procedures. Okay. Okay, next one is safeguard in the workplace. Safeguards in the workplace for accountant in business. Okay, read these things. Safeguards arise from the procedure and rules and regulation. In here, we have safeguards in the workplace for accountant. Workplace safeguards the theme to minimize the threats. We have employers oversight system. Employees like Mahari inside the Pragana Bulwana, Aperitica mentioned Karana, some other companies the Pulan system mega, that means normally we are saying the feedback. Likewise, and employers ethics and conduct programs, so we can train our employees. So what are the good ethics? Likewise, so we can arrange some programs. Recruitment procedures. So when we are recruiting some people to our organization, so we can strictly check whether those people have good ethics. Okay, if these people have good attitudes, good behavior, likewise in the interview. So providing some exams as well. Knowledge in the interview process, so we can check whether these people have good attitude, behaviors, likewise. Okay. And a strong internal control system. internal control system with the safeguard that to minimize the threats and appropriate discipline process, leadership that is ethics. Leadership එක කියනවා නම් අපිට ස්පෙෂලි ඒ කියන්නේ රෙස්ට්‍රික්ට් කරනවා මේ ethics වල follow කරන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? දැන් අපේ රටේ වෙන්නේ අනිත් පැත්තනේ. ඒ නම් හරියට ethics නැහැනේ. ඒ නිසා leadership එක හොඳට ස්ට්‍රෙස් කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අලා ස්ට්‍රෙස් කරනවා නම් ethics follow කරන්න කියලා. So then we should have we can reduce our threats. So likewise, so there are some example of ethical safeguard in the workplace. A strong control environment. Strong control environment okay. However, if these safeguards are ineffective, the professional accountant may have to seek legal advice or resign. මේ මොන කොච්චර අපේ safeguard තිබ්බත් ඒවා effectively වැඩ කරන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒ effectively කරගෙන යන්න නැත්නම් as a professional accountant there are two options he can take. What are the main two options? So he can seek the legal advice. Legally මොකද්ද මට ගන්න පුළුවන් advice එක කියලා එයාට බලන්න පුළුවන්. Otherwise he can resign. He can resign from the job. Okay. So whatever the safeguards we have in our organization and also rules and regulations, so these things are sometimes ineffective. And then ඒ වුණත් අවසාන professional accountant කෙනෙක්ට කරන්න තියෙන actions දෙකක් තියෙනවා. පළවෙනි තමයි he can seek the legal advice. එහෙම නැත්නම් he can resign. Okay. Okay, so those are the actually things we have to cover. And when you are moving the first step, so there are 3 steps we have discussed in here: public interest, and then establishment of fundamental principles, and then conceptual framework address the threats to compliance and applying the safeguards. So those are the main 3 areas we have discussed. Okay, so I will give you a time to answer this question and then we will discuss. So I will read the question for you. Practice question number 1. So මේක තමයි ළමයි exam එකේ format එක. Okay. කෙලින්ම ඔයාලගෙන් කෙලින් ප්‍රශ්න අහන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා මේක බලන්න පොඩ්ඩක්. Practice question number 1. The draft financial statement for World Tea PLC for the year ended 31st March 2002 have been prepared, and the statement of profit or loss shows a sharp drop in operating profit. Okay, so you whatever the important information you can highlight or underline. Okay, a sharp drop in operating profit compared to the previous year. This has a knock-off effect on operating cash flow in the statement of cash flows. Okay, මේක වෙලා තියෙන ළමයි මොකක් නිසාද? Mainly the effect of operating cash flow in the statement of cash. The directors of World Tea PLC are of the opinion that this is the result of major customers suffering financial difficulties together with the general reduction in the level of trade in the second half of 2001. Okay, the directors, so they are think about their opinion is this is the result of major customers suffering the financial difficulty, and also together with the general reduction in the level of trade in second half of 2001. They are however sure that this was temporary problem. So they have think about this a temporary problem and believe that trading has improved significantly. Trading ke liye samane sales. Okay, trading has improved significantly in the final 2 months of reporting period. Okay, final 2 months of reporting period. Here. Okay. Now, when it comes to the second paragraph, the directors are concerned that the fall in operating cash flow may result in the breach in loan covenant and a drop in the market confidence. Okay, so the directors, so they have identified this is mainly based on that in this scenario, so they have mentioned the falling operating cash flows. What is the result? That means as a result of this operating cash flows, the directors identify this is mainly happen based on the breach of loan covenants and drop in market confidence. Okay. They are also aware that a drop in operating profit will adversely affect the performance related pay. So now you can see here, then operating cash flows අඩු වුණා, then it will adversely affect the performance related pay awarded to the directors. Directors වලට performance based award එකක් දෙනවා. ඊටන උදාහරණයකට bonus එකක්. Okay. දැන් මේ operating profit එක අඩු වුණා කියලා කියන්නේ directors ලගේ bonus එකකට එතන impact එකක් තියෙනවා. And directors and the senior management of world team, they therefore believe that it is in the best interest of the company and its long-term health to make some adjustment to the draft financial statement. They have suggested to the financial controller, a chartered accountant, that she include a proportion of operating expenses as extraordinary items in the statement of profit or loss stated after operating profit. Okay. This should be one. The next one is include the proportion of the proceeds generated from the sale property. Okay. A proportion කරලා තියෙනවා of the proceeds generated from the sale of property, plant and equipment. PPF sale කරපු එක. Okay. As cash generated from operations in the statement of cash flow. Okay. අපි අපේ තිබ්බ PP එක sale කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ proceeding එක දාලා තියෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ ළමයි operation activity එකක් විදියට. Okay. ඒක මොකද දෙන්න ඕනේ? Okay, you have to think. All property, plant and equipment is used in world P operations. Okay. So the requirement is, so explain the ethical responsibility of financial controller. So who is the financial controller? You can see they have suggested to financial controller, that means the chartered accountant. So this is the person we have to address. Okay. Explain the ethical responsibility of the financial controller in respect of director's suggestion. Okay. So in this scenario, so what are the things you have to do? So the question is asked. So what is the ethical responsibility as a financial controller? That means the chartered accountant. What is her ethical responsibilities based on the director's decision? Okay. I will give you 5 to 10 minutes to answer this one. Here we have added the sample answer. It's actual explanation to the case study. So in here, this case, if we are say summary of the case study, it's mentioned the operating cash flows. the main highlight of the company. So it's mentioned the operating, its profit and cash flows are down. Okay, profit cash flows are main because of its biggest customer had financial issues and there was slowdown in the business. So that's the main reason for that. Okay. So but the thing is now directors are worried. Directors la worry vela inna me scenario again. Okay. So why? What are the reasons? Banks might say the company is not meeting the loan term. Loan na karana loan covenant submit කරනවා. agreement එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ විදිහට කරගෙන යනවා. අපි loan එකක් ගන්නකොට. එතකොට banks වලින් issue එකක් ආවොත් මේ terms වලට satisfy වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා ඒ issue එක තියෙනවා. And also investors might lose the trust. So investors වගේ profit එක අඩු වෙනවා, cash flows අඩු වෙනවා. ඒතර loan එක ගෙවා ගන්න බැරි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. සහ investors ලගේ trust එක අඩු වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර investment එක අඩු වෙන්න පුළුවන්. invest කරන ගාන අඩු වෙන්න පුළුවන්. And their bonus and performance will reduce. That means the අපි කියවා case study එකේ directors ලට performance based payment එකක් යනවා. Okay. So if the profit is go down, that means the bonus and performance they will reduce. Okay. And then so they asked the financial controller, that's the CA, chartered accountant, who is professional accountant, to adjust the accountant way that make the results look better. And they can profit take a අඩු වෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න, cash flow එකේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න මේක adjust කරන්න කියලා directors ලා මේ financial control කියලා තියෙනවා. Okay. So they suggest to two things. They have suggest two things. What is the first thing is to first one is to move some normal expenses to different places in the income statement to make operating profit looks higher. May operating expenses normal expense වලට මාරු කරන්න කියනවා income statement එකයි කොහෙත් හරි, but their expectation is operating profit එක වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. And next thing is show some cash from selling fixed asset. මොන හරි අපේ fixed asset තිබ්බනම් building machinery, likewise if we have sold these things as if it is came from daily operation, daily operations so and to make the cash flow stronger. Other cash flow adjust කරන්න කියලා operating cash flows. ඉතින් අපි මේ building හරි machinery හරි sale කරා කියලා මොකද දෙන්නේ අපි මොන activity එකද ඒක? It is not the cash flow statement. Investment activity අර තමයි එන්නේ. But they have suggested to take these values to the operating activities. Okay. So that's the main scenario. Okay. So what should the financial controller do? As ethical person, as a professional accountant, the accountant has a duty to follow ethics and accounting rules. Okay. So that means she has to follow the ethics. We have discussed. And also we have some rules and regulations coming under the accounting rules because this is mainly related to the accounting. Cash flow statement. Even the directors are pressuring her, she must do what's right. Okay. Then breaking down of the ethical responsibility. So I have taken some simple words to here. So lama exam liya tara තියෙන definition එකේ සම්පූර්ණ ලියන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. පදවල කියන හැබැයි වචන ටික හරි වචන ටිකක් එන්න ඕන මෙතන. EPD, straightforward and honest. Honest or truthfulness. Likewise, so what are the keywords you have to enter? You have to write. Okay. So breakdown of ethical responsibilities. So we have discussed 5 ethical principles. When it comes to integrity, so what it means to be honest and truthful. Okay. So why it matters here in this scenario according to the case study, taking the numbers in dishonest and could mislead banks and investors. අපි ඒක වෙනස් කරොත් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? Banks වලට අපි දෙන details ටික mislead information තමයි දෙන්නේ. And also the investors also we are changing. That means you have to be honest and truthful. Share කරන්න ඕනේ. And also when it comes to objectivity, don't let others pressure or influence your decision. දැන් මෙතන directors ලා මොකද කරේ ළමයි? එයා pressure කරනවා financial controller මෙන්න මේ වගේ වැඩි කරන්න. Okay. So directors want better result from their own benefit. The accountant must not queue it. Director කියනවා මේ විදිහට කරන්න. So then this should not be there. It's mainly impact to the objectivity. Then the professional competence. Professional competence and due care. Follow accounting standard correctly. Okay, so that's the thing. So as a professional accountant, what she need to do if she is a good accountant, professional accountant, she has to follow whatever the guideline available in the accounting standard. That means LKS 7. The changes in directors want to against accounting rules like LKS 1 and also LKS 7. Then the next thing is professional behavior. Professional behavior. Do what's legally and ethically right. මොකද්ද legally සහ ethically right. අපි මේ දේ තමයි කරන්නේ professional behavior. In here, when it's come to our case study, making false changes could get the company and the accountant in the legal trouble. මේව කරොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? Accountant and also the company side, they have to face serious trouble in the future. And the final thing is confidentiality. The keep company information private unless there is a risk of wrongdoing. Okay. If things get serious, she may need to report this issue to the higher authorities like audit committee. If you remember audit committee, that's the main duty of it. We have discussed that. So then, මේක තමයි serious years. එතකොට මොකද්ද මේ financial control එක කරන් තියෙන. So she has to inform to the audit committee of the company. Clear? Okay. So those are the ethical principles we have to identify. හරිදම එතකොට ළමයි මේ answer කියනකොට මෙන්න මේ විදිහට breakdown එකක් දාගන්න ඕනේ. දැන් ඔයාලා මෙතන නිකම්ම ලියුවට හරියන්නේ නැහැ. integrity නා integrity අදාළව අපේ case එකේ මොකක්ද කියන්නේ. So you have to explain. And then so these are the rules, accounting rules. LKS 1. So there says there is no such things as extraordinary items anymore. So they have to mention under the proper expense category. And also LKS 7 says selling building or equipment goes under the investing activities, not daily operation. Okay. LKS 7 එකට අනුව අප මේ building හරි equipment හරි sell කරන යන්න ඕනේ investing activities වලට, operation activities වලට නෙමෙයි. Okay. These are some additional things. So what could happen if she listened to the directors? Directors she could face disciplinary action from her professional body. And also the company could get in trouble with the regulators. And investors and banks might lose trust. Okay, කවදා හරි මේක එළියට එනවනේ මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. So that bank වලින් සහ investors ලගෙන් investor trust එක නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It could be considered fraudulent reporting. Okay. So finally, what you need to take in this case study, as a professional accountant, you must always do what right. Okay. So that's the thing. Even if your boss pressure you, what is the thing you have to do as the final takeaway from today's session? So you have to do what's right according to ethics, according to the relevant accounting standards, the other regulations. So what is the thing you would have to do? Correct right thing. Okay, correct the right thing. Okay. That's the thing. Your job is to protect the truth and public interest and your professional reputation, not just to be a place management. Reputation may be lost. Okay. There is a මේ ටික තමයි ළමයි අපිට ගන්න තියෙන මේ case study එකේ. හරිද? මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඔයාලට exam එකට එන්නේ. හරිද? ඒතර මේ writing pattern එක පොඩ්ඩක් බලා ගන්න. Okay, any doubt or any clarification regarding the session?